All right, Michael Popok, welcome back to Mea Culpa. Lots going on. When I say lots, I'm not joking. Lots. So we're going to jump right into it. I want to ask you, I want to start this off by saying Trump's new wave of tariffs is isolating China. But with Beijing now hitting back with these retaliatory tariffs, who do you think really wins this trade war when 70+%, let me say that again, 70+% of US household goods are imported from China? You think that American families are about to feel some real pain at the Walmart, the Target, the Costco?
Absolutely. This could be a $5,000 a year tax that the American consumer has to pay. China is not going to blink. First of all, let me back up a minute. Thanks for having me on the show, Michael. Always a pleasure. This is a phony trade imbalance that Donald Trump is relying on. There is no real trade imbalance between China and the United States when you add together goods and services. Trade consists of two components, right? Things that you physically can hold in your hands, that's a goods, including agriculture, and things that are service providing. We, by the American companies, the banks, the insurance companies, the law firms, the consulting companies, they are supplying more services into China than the Chinese counterparts are servicing here. Just think about it. When was the last time you thought about hiring in America, a Chinese law firm, a Chinese accounting firm, a Chinese consulting firm? Almost never. However, in China, to have the elite American firms, insurance, banking, all that, those are services. We're ahead in services by $250 billion. It completely eviscerates the trade gap as long as you add goods and services together. By the way, Canada is the exact same thing. So that whole thing is a fraud. Now it looks like the plan, Michael, was whoever got to Donald Trump last. Thank God he was watching Jamie Dimon on Maria Bartiromo 2 days ago on CNBC, because if he wasn't watching cable news, he wouldn't have gotten the idea, I guess, to hit the pause button for 90 days. So now our erratic trade policy is coming out of a man who watches cable television and gets the bright idea to execute global financial policy based on whoever was in his ear last. Bill Ackman from Pershing Square, or Maria and Jamie Dimon, Wall Street calling him up and bringing him to the mat. That does not give confidence to the world economy. And trade is already shrinking because they see him as an erratic, unreliable trading partner, even with this change. And everybody that got excited, slapping high fives in Congress, and Bill Ackman leading it with art of the deal. It's the art of the deal, Michael. Michael, you were there for the art of the deal. It's the art of the deal. Look at him. Stock market is in the trash again today after a momentary elation led to a $3 trillion rise. Now the market has woken up not confident because it looks like Donald Trump's main trade strategy is to try to bash China into submission and get Europe and others to join with them. But they're in their own trade war with Donald Trump right now.
Right. In fact, this whole trade thing makes absolutely no sense at all. You know, I use the example like in my Substack that I wrote this morning. Take Vietnam, which I think is just such a perfect example. Vietnam is a poor country. They're a manufacturing country. Why? Because the labor is dog shit cheap, like $1 an hour. So Nike, for example, look at your Nike sneakers. Where are they made? They're made in Vietnam, right? So what happens? How are you going to ever have a dollar-to-dollar trade imbalance with Vietnam when you're comparing it to the United States? The only way that they could possibly be dollar for dollar in this trade exchange is if they bought F-16s or military technology, which they have two things. One, no money for, and two, no need for.
Right.
So
or
at the end of the
oil,
day,
petroleum, gas, they don't take that either.
No. And at the end of the day, that's why you can never have the zero-sum game that Trump and Lutnick and Bessent and so many others keep calling for. It doesn't exist. The world is broken down into different factions. Those that manufacture, those that consume.
That's right. How many computers can that island with the penguins actually buy? I guess is your point.
I don't know. I mean,
He
seriously. And then you get your former boss. It's funny because your former boss was Howard Lutnick, right, from Cantor. Mine,
yep.
of course, was President Trump. And the interesting thing is when you sit there and I watch as Howard in the back talk about deflection. When now, while all of this shit is going on, Trump is signing executive orders to go after two individuals. But on top of that, not only is he going after two individuals, which, by the way, in my book, Revenge, I warned people for a long time this was going to happen. But on top of that, an executive order regarding water pressure and shower heads. You can't make this stuff up. And while Trump is talking about this, your former boss is hysterical in the background, laughing, as if going after former government employees because one wrote a book. That's Miles Taylor when he wrote Anonymous. Howard's sitting there cracking up. I've known Howard 23 years. I've never seen him laugh so hard and so stupidly. What's going on there?
Yeah, that I don't know. I mean, for those that look me up on LinkedIn, I spent 4 years at Cantor Fitzgerald running their litigation department, and I worked with Howard, but I don't have any current insight into him other than my observations. And my observations is, he ran, as we all know, a mom and pop sort of middle of the road brokerage firm, never accepted by the big boys, was never really accepted by what we call the bulge bracket firms on Wall Street, like J.P. Morgan Chase, Jamie Dimon, or Goldman Sachs. I mean, they put up with Cantor because they were a market maker when it came to bonds. So they found in treasuries, they found them important in that way, but they never really let him play in any of the reindeer games. He wasn't at all the meetings, and now they're running around kissing his ass. And he's so excited that he made the New York Yankees, from not even AAA, wherever he was before. And that's what we're watching.
From the high school team.
From the high school team. And it really disgusts me to see him be so callous, as the whole Trump administration is, and so cavalier about human suffering and about, they think it's, the stock market's down 7 trillion. Oh, it's up 4 trillion. Oh, yeah. So the billionaires made $1 trillion. All of his buddies made a lot of money. It was the biggest insider stock swindle that I can see. And now we know that Scott Bessent has no real power over Donald Trump. Howard Lutnick does, and whoever he speaks to last from CNBC.
Yeah,
Jamie
I don't know
Dimon.
if Howard. Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry. I don't know if Howard has any. I don't think he has any control or any real presence, believe it or not, in front of Trump. Trump is using
What did I
Howard.
say? I say he's listening to Howard?
Yeah.
I agree with you. I don't think he's listening to Howard.
He's listening to Howard only to have Howard respond to Trump in the way that Trump asks a question, right? Which is, Howard, it would be great, quite frankly, if we just whacked the shit out of China at 125%, right? Wouldn't it be great?
And
what's
yes.
Howard going to do?
You always say yes to the president. Yes to the president. Yes.
Exactly. I mean, that's what's going on there. But, you bring up a really important point, something that I saw Adam Schiff come out. You think that this whole brief tariff reprieve, and then again with the plummeting the very next day, yada, yada, is this volatility, or do you think that we're witnessing a new form of market manipulation under this Trump chaotic second term?
There's only two ways to see this. 3 days earlier, I did a hot take on the fact that there was a fake, what we thought was a fake news report of this exact thing that Bill Ackman from Pershing Square had been pushing on Donald Trump, which was a 90-day reprieve. The market at almost before the closing bell on the day after Liberation Day heard about the fake rumor, moved the market on the fake rumor, and recovered $3 trillion. Then the Trump administration, one of two things. Either it leaked out that he was going to do it, and they wanted to kill it because Trump wasn't ready. So they sent out a rapid team response that said fake news, and the market tanked again. One of two things. Either that was a leak that got out early and Trump always was going to do it, or, which I don't believe, or having watched how the fake news gyrated the market, he had a bright idea that was reinforced by Jamie Dimon and Bill Ackman to actually impose what the rumor was, which was the 90-day
Reprieve.
hit. He 9:37 in the morning. You and I have all seen it. He posts on his paid subscriber Truth Social platform using his stock symbol initials. Now's a great time to buy stock. DJT. He never signs anything DJT. Less than 3 hours later, while his trade representative is getting grilled by Grierson, right? Grierson, who did that one? Horsford. Sorry, he announces pause, and the stock market. People made trillions of dollars and hundreds of billions of dollars in that couple of hour period. We're going to find out who within Congress, because May 15th, they got to reveal their stock purchases. We already know that Marjorie Taylor Greene, suddenly, I don't even know where she got her. I don't even know if you know this, Michael. She was a personal trainer. Now she's investing $1 million in treasuries 3 days before the tariff announcement. And now we're going to see who really had insider knowledge in the Trump administration, in the Trump family, as Adam Schiff and Murphy and other senators open up insider trading investigations.
You think they're going to be able to even open them up? Do you think that, when Adam Schiff tries to open up, because I see these as a slew of FEC violations. And securities law violations. That's how I see this advance.
Right. Who's going to prosecute it?
Right. That's the question. Yeah. So Adam Schiff is going to make, because he's the minority, whip there at the in his committee. So he goes to the chairman and he says, "I want to open up an investigation." Fuck you, Shifty Schiff. Right. And that's a text message that I just got from the president. I told him you were going to come to ask this, and here's what he said. Wait, hold on. Here's my phone. Yeah. President Trump. Shifty Schiff, go fuck yourself. Right. Yeah. We're not.
They're not going to be able to get it.
And
they're
then
not going to get anything out of them.
Even assuming that they're even able to open up an investigation, who's going to prosecute it? Pam Bondi? She's going to prosecute Lutnick or Bessent or Marjorie Toilet Green or anybody?
But the attorneys general, if this is a blue sky violation or other securities regulations that can be done at the state level, we've got 22 or so blue attorneys general, including Letitia James in New York, who may open a bit. But yeah, forget the feds until we get back the House and the Senate. God willing, in less than 2 years, we will not be able to do anything at the federal level from an agency regulatory standpoint or from a prosecutorial standpoint. The states are going to have to fill in the blanks at the state attorney general. Every state has some sort of what we call blue sky law, another way to regulate. There'll be a fight over that. But I know you don't think Letitia James, we all saw it. We all saw the stock manipulation. She's working on it right now with her various offices. So we got that going on. But you're right, at the federal level. But people, the part that pisses me off, Michael, is we as Democrats and moderates and all that, we can't have amnesia. We got to be searing these events into our brain right now, never to be forgotten. And when it comes time at a special election or the midterms, we have to punish and throw the bastards out with an R next to their name. That's it. And I don't want to hear, I don't remember. That was way back in April 2025. You don't, right. I mean, how, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. It's true. All of a sudden, everybody gets that amnesia. Let me ask you this question, though. You think Trump's erratic tariff policy, you think it represents a failure of institutional checks, or does it expose legitimately how much power a president actually has over the economy with little to no oversight?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think the way this government has been set up by our founders, now being exploited by Donald Trump, if a Trump gets in and he gets both houses, both chambers of Congress, and he has that already, and he's got a Supreme Court in his back pocket, he control all those agencies that we talk about, even the ones that were set up by Congress to be bipartisan, are all housed under the executive branch. And we know from the rulings we're now watching the Supreme Court and the wins they're starting to give Donald Trump, we know that they're going to allow him to do whatever he wants in that sandbox that he alone controls as the sole member, the sole representative of the executive branch. So that's something around the world. And I know you have a lot of global fans also. that they don't quite understand. They're like, well, the judicial branch should have the prosecutors too, right? No, prosecutors are in the executive branch. Well, that's a problem already, as you can see. Well, the agencies and the bipartisanly created ones by Congress, they're not controlled by what's the checks and balance? Well, the checks and balance is Congress and or the federal courts. Well, we got a problem. Congress is out to lunch, has gone fishing for the next 2 years when it comes to Donald Trump and control, right? They're just political hacks that are just his cheerleaders. And the federal courts are struggling. We're doing everything right to try to do the check and balance. We're filing in the right courts. We're getting the right judges, and we're getting the right rulings all the way up to the right circuit court of appeal. But you can see what's happening now for the struggle of the soul of America at the Supreme Court. We, as thoughtful people, we need to run the table and get both Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett over to our side so that we can count to 5 to win at the Supreme Court on all of these policies. They only have to bat 500. They need one of the two. They've already got a built-in, baked-in 4 to start. It's like when you step into the batter's box, you already 2 strikes. You already got 2 strikes every batter. And so this is our fight. Our fight is this has become the Amy Coney Barrett court. And sometimes she sides with the liberal wing or the Democratic wing of the Supreme Court, and a lot of times she doesn't. And that's going to be the law on these 5-4 decisions. So to answer your question in a long-winded way, we right now, without having Congress, we really have no ability to check Donald Trump's worst instincts when it comes to our economy.
None. And it's not just Trump. It's the enablers that are around him. You see, they all think that they're mini Trumps. I kind of use that toy from Japan. What was a Voltron, right? the Voltron toy, where it's like a whole bunch of little mini bots combined together to make one big giant Voltron bot. All these guys, all of them, they think they're little mini Donalds, that they can do whatever they want, they can act. I guarantee you that Trump was not in on this what do we call insider trading, right? I guarantee you he wasn't. I guarantee you he was bragging that look what I can do, look what I can do. I fucked up the entire global economy. Now I'm going to pull it all back and I'm going to declare it as a win. Quite frankly, it's the most beautiful win that anybody's ever seen. It's the biggest win ever in U.S. history. We're going to bring the market up so much. It's going to be beautiful. And then you see Lutnick, his eyes light up, and Bessent and the rest of them in the room. Oh, my God. Wait. It's like I have the key to the kingdom, knowing what's going to happen. I mean, a 5-year-old with $1 could easily have made $1,000 yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
That's really how they had all the insider information that they need. And I guarantee you that when Trump ends up looking at this as more of an investigation starts to reveal itself, that's going to really piss him off because it makes him look dirty. And it's one thing if he makes himself look dirty. It's another thing if somebody else financially benefits because he allowed them into the Oval Office, which makes him look stupid.
Well, let's go to Bill Ackman. I mean, the reporting now out of the Wall Street Journal, now that we're doing the postmortem, is that it was a combination phone call of Jamie Dimon after he was on Bartiromo and Bill Ackman from Pershing Square, who infamously wrote 2 days earlier that Donald Trump, who he had supported, even though he was a Democrat, he wrote after Butler, Pennsylvania's the bullet whizzed by Donald Trump's head, Bill Ackman took to his social media and gave 30 reasons. It was like a 20-screen social media post about why he wasn't supporting Kamala Harris and he was supporting Donald Trump for the economy. Then he said 2 days ago that the tariffs and the Liberation Day was creating a nuclear winter against the American economy. He also said, I don't know if you caught this one, Michael, he attacked Howard Lutnick, pardon me, our Commerce Secretary, and he said, maybe we shouldn't have a Commerce Secretary whose business model at Cantor Fitzgerald is based on a failing economy. I mean, the one thing you can say about Cantor Fitzgerald, which is primarily, even though they like to tout themselves as an investment bank, they're primarily just a retail brokerage that's making the VIG on the buy and the sell. The number one thing you can say about them is all they want is turmoil and velocity of trades. People, and we had a high velocity trades yesterday, buying and selling. They make the money because they don't take positions. They make the money on the buy and the sell. So they want erratic behavior. So his point was, maybe we don't want a commerce secretary that's rooting against the American economy.
Yeah, I agree with that. But we were talking a few moments ago about the House and the Senate. The Senate had a bill that they put forth aiming to reclaim congressional control over tariffs that would require the president to notify Congress 48 hours in advance and at the Senate's request to justify the decision as to why the imposition of the tariff is even necessary. Now, you could imagine that Trump clearly doesn't like to have to tell anybody anything. And there's a reason for that, because there is no policy. There is no strategy. This is all ego-driven. This is all guttural. What's the constitutional weight of this bill? And can it really hold back an authoritarian-leaning president who doesn't see the tripartite system as legitimate?
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Grassley, right? It's the Grassley bill in the Senate, who's a Trump supporter, 80-year-old Chuck Grassley out of Iowa, and Mary Cantwell, the other senator, Democrat. They and what it is just effectively trying to take back the power that is given only to the legislative branch to conduct tariffs and tariff policy. Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution gives only and solely to Congress the power about excises, impositions, and other types of tariffs, not to the president. Now, after the 1930s and the Depression and the Smoot-Hawley Act, which was the only other time that we globally tried to destroy trade through tariffs, the politicians at the time said, maybe we should not take all the political heat. Why don't we give a little bit to the executive branch? So they had all the bundles of sticks of the entirety of the ability to do this under the Constitution, not the presidency. It's a core constitutional function of the House and the Senate. And they took one of the sticks and gave it to the president and gave him the power under certain limited circumstances to play around with the tariffs. They should be able to take it back. But through a new bill, which basically just reasserts the power of Congress and to take back that which they gave to the executive branch.
I've tried a lot of ways to relax. Tried meditation, therapy, the occasional rage tweet, but nothing. I mean, nothing has helped me unwind quite like fire. It is actually a game changer. So I've talked to each and every one of you, and I told you I've struggled with my sleep for years. Tossing, turning, overthinking, replaying mistakes I've made in my head at like 2 a.m. But ever since I started taking Via's dream gummies, I sleep like a baby. And a baby who didn't work for Trump. And it's not just sleep. Via has something for everyone, has something for everything. So whether you need to relax, to focus, to recharge, or just stop giving a damn for a few hours, they got you covered. These are hemp-derived, lab-tested, organic products crafted right here in the United States of America from independent, American-owned farms. This isn't some gas station mystery snack. It is clean, safe, and it actually works. Over 500,000 people are already on the Via train, and with their award-winning, effect-forward lineup from zero to high THC, you can dial in the exact vibe that you want. Take their product finder quiz and find what fits you. And after it does, you can thank me later. So if you're 21 plus, check out the link to Via in our description and treat yourself to Via's annual Spring 420 sale. These are like Black Friday level savings with up to 35% site-wide right now and up to 50%. You hear that? Up to 50% off packs and bundles. Plus, you also get a free gift and more savings with your first offer using our exclusive code Cohen. Plus, there's more. Enjoy free shipping on all orders over $100. So that's code Cohen, C-O-H-E-N, at the link in our description. And after your purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Enhance you every day with Via.
The question is not whether, from an academic standpoint, they should be able to do this. The answer is yes. That which you give, you should be able to take back, especially when it's your core constitutional function. The question is, what is the United States Supreme Court going to do about it? And the problem we always have when it comes to presidential power is we have at least four votes that believes in the unitary power of the president, and that he rises above, in their view, and the immunity decision was part of it. He rises above the other two branches of government. And you've got these presidentialists that worked in the executive branch before they became judges, Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Roberts. But Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh, they're a solid four to bend over backwards to help any president, especially one named Donald Trump. The question is Roberts. Sometimes he's a weather vane. Sometimes he rules for him. Sometimes he doesn't. And then Amy Coney Barrett, the same thing. That's why we're 0-3 in the last week with Supreme Court decisions enabling Donald Trump. We're 1-3 overall in the last month. The only one that they've cited for democracy and the rule of law is when Amy Coney Barrett, right after the joint session speech, along with Roberts, joined the other three to allow $2 billion in foreign aid to be paid through U.S. aid. That's the only win that we've had so far at the United States Supreme Court. Everything else has been a whole bunch of technical and no stay and this and that. They're all just giving the win to the back of Donald Trump for his most outrageous policies.
Which is crazy. But meanwhile, Mike Johnson is expected to kill the tariff oversight bill in the House. I mean, I'm not even sure it's going to even get to a vote. You know, to me, it's really telling. But what do you think it's telling us about the modern GOP's complete surrender? And I mean it, complete and total surrender of checks and balances when it comes to Trump's executive overreach.
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, things that people have to remember at the time of the midterms. We have to hold them accountable and run them out on a rail. They've completely abdicated their responsibility to do any part of checks and balance. If you cornered them in a hallway, and you said to them, because now they're floating a new bill that'll never pass the Senate, I don't think, but they're floating a new bill in Congress led by Mike Johnson to hold judges accountable, rogue judges accountable, because they're doing the checks and balance that they're supposed to be doing, and they don't like it. Oh, we're gonna take that away from them. No more nationwide injunctions, except when we really loved them when Biden was in office. We're going to do this multi-district venue thing and all sorts of crazy things that should be unconstitutional, even to this United States Supreme Court. But there's no check and balance going on whatsoever. The sad part is, Michael, I don't think that our founding fathers and framers envisioned. They were worried about a president getting into the White House on a populist wave. Yep. You know, for them, later it was Andrew Jackson, but now Donald Trump. What they didn't envision is that the people would be so anesthetized by it that they would throw away our system of government, and they would also hand him, at least for 2 years, another branch. And the fact that he, because he was in once before, was able to reshape the face of the federal judiciary. I don't think they ever thought that one guy would get so much power enabled by the Supreme Court with an immunity decision, so no criminal prosecution. And we're only left with the power of impeachment, and you can't do impeachment when you're in control of the House and the Senate.
That's definitely accurate. I mean, meanwhile, since you just brought up this whole thing about that, the federal judges, this new bill that they're putting forth, right, basically bars a U.S. federal judge from issuing a nationwide injunction. The question I want to ask you is, what do you think of the long-term consequence of this on the judiciary's ability to check presidential power? And I want to remind everyone, since you brought that up, that come 2026 during the midterm, people have to remember some of the things that Trump had said earlier on. And it's almost going to be like our responsibility, Popok, to constantly remind them of the things. For whatever reason, too many people in this country do have amnesia when it comes to Trump. He's the one who said, metaphorically speaking, He wants to rewrite the United States Constitution. He wants to strip the legislative and the judiciary of their co-equal powers conferred by the Constitution. And then, after he strips them of their power, that all power should then be conferred to the executive branch, namely the chief executive, which, by the way, happens to be the president of the United States himself. This is a real problem. He talked about doing this, and the way I see it, whether it's the Senate tariff bill, whether it's this anti-court bill, that's exactly what he's doing. He is stripping them of all power. And they need to be worried as well, because if he's able to, like they wanted to do, which is to impeach a judge because he doesn't like the ruling, a federal court judge who, by the way, happens to have been appointed by a president of the United States, then he could do that to the Supreme Court justices as well, because they're also appointed by a president.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, his attack on the judiciary, attack on law firms, as we know, continues. I just did a hot take about his now attack. He's now, he hates defamation cases, having lost twice to E. Jean Carroll and owing her $100 million. So he's gone after the lawyers and law firms for Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss at Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, who bent over and are going to pay $100 million in free legal service for Donald Trump. I'm sure they're going to fire Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss's clients if they haven't already. And now yesterday he went after the law firm that represented Dominion and was able to prove that, they were defamed and bashed by a fraudulent big lie about voter fraud in their voting equipment on Fox. We saw the emails. They all came out in the summary judgment filings in Delaware court. It led to Tucker Carlson getting canned. And Fox News saw the writing on the wall and paid $787 million. Well, Donald Trump now thinks Sussman Goodkind, or whatever it is, out of Houston, needs to go and put them on the blacklist. Then you've got his sponsored bill to restrain federal judges. I think that is a violation of separation of church and state. I think judges need to have the power, inherent authority or otherwise, to fashion remedies, including nationwide injunctions, in order to give relief to the parties who have been injured. And if you're going to take away, the Republicans love nationwide injunctions when they used to do the Texas two-step, where they'd file with Kazmarek in Abilene, Texas, to stop women from having the ability to use medicated abortion drugs. And he issued a nationwide injunction. Or they loved it when, one of the judges in Texas or Louisiana decided they were the commander-in-chief during COVID and overruled, or tried to overrule through a nationwide injunction, Joe Biden's COVID policy as it related to the military. A lot of whooping and hollering.
By the way, they loved it. They loved it when Biden passed the Student Loan Forgiveness Act. Yeah. They jumped right in on that one. I mean, they seem to love it when it benefits them.
Of course.
Sorry, continue.
No, yes. And then, they got some judges there, Gorsuch have been upset about nationwide injunctions and why there are so many of them. And we just had a recent one. Boasberg tried to do a nationwide injunction by certifying a class of people affected by the Alien Enemies Act. But now his jurisdiction has been completely taken away from him because the Supreme Court has said, no, you can't help all these Venezuelans and others. There have to be individual applications for writ of habeas corpus in thousands of courts around the country. You can't do a nationwide injunction. So dividing and conquering is exactly Donald Trump's approach. He doesn't want a nationwide injunction. He wants us to have to file 50 lawsuits in 50 different locations and have 10 different competing orders. And while, and time is not on our side. It's not on his side either, by the way. I don't just mean the Grim Reaper. It's not on his side either, because he's got 2 years to the midterm. And if you and I are right, and the American people do what I think is right, what they're going to do, he's going to lose and lose badly at the midterms in the House and the Senate. And I've only half joked, give me the House and the Senate, and I'll give you an impeachment and a conviction, because he's done things already that are impeachable offenses. He has done things already that are impeachable offenses. Back to your point, we just don't have a Congress led by the MAGA that are going to do anything about it.
It doesn't appear that we have the judiciary either. And if this,
Right.
my big fear is that if this anti-judiciary bill clears the Senate, we're effectively gutting the judicial independence, and we're in effect turning federal judges into toothless referees that I'm going to make a decision based upon what I think Donald Trump wants, not based upon law or fact, but based upon what one man wants to hear from them.
And here's the question
and that's dangerous.
Here's the question for us here. I'm not sure who has the standing to challenge. I'm not sure that bill gets past the Senate because you're going to have to clear a 60 vote hurdle ultimately to get that approved, and I don't think you're going to be able to do that. But let's assume it does. And then I want there to be a lawsuit over it, where up to the United States Supreme Court about whether this was a violation of separation of powers. But I'm not sure who brings that suit. I'd have to think deeper about who's the proper plaintiff for that case. Like, no, I want the judge to have the ability to nationwide enjoin me. I mean, it's a weird, plaintiff.
Yeah, who actually would be the plaintiff in that case?
Right. ABA? I mean, and how about this weirdo stuff? Did you know Todd Blanche from your time kicking around New York?
Unfortunately, Todd Blanche was the attorney who cross-examined me in the criminal case.
I forgot. Right. So Blanche, everybody knows, the top 4 people in the Trump administration's Department of Justice are all his former criminal defense lawyers: Pam Bondi, Emil Beauvais, Todd Blanche, and John Sauer, in one shape or form. I mean, that is the weirdest thing we've ever seen. The most despicable thing we've ever seen is that he brought all his criminal defense lawyers and made them your and my lawyers for the United States of America. Todd Blanche is relishing, apparently, in his job as being the bad cop, which is what the number 2 position in the Department of Justice is often called. And now he's issuing all sorts of edicts. You must lie in court in order to support the Trump administration and violate your duty of candor.
Well, hold on. Okay. Wait. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. So does that? Yes. Let me tell you why.
Right, tell me why. I love this show.
Back. Go ahead. Okay, so I can go back now and ask for a reprieve on the criminal conviction that I took for lying to Congress, the 1001 violation,
because you're ordered
which
to.
I did at the direction and for the benefit of Donald J. Trump.
That works for you.
So if in fact that I did that, why am I not being honored with the Medal of Honor, right, as opposed to remaining a felon?
Yeah, Mr. Ruvini, we're talking in code here. Mr. Ruvini, who used to be the head of the Immigration Litigation Department or agent or division at the Department of Justice, lost his job effectively and fired by Todd Blanche because he told the truth about Armando Abrego Garcia being subject to an amnesty order that would prevented him from being removed to El Salvador. And when they got the transcript and saw that he had confessed that, which he had to, the judge asked him. And they got fired for, insubordination and not following the directions of the Department of Justice. To what? Lie? So you have that. Now Blanche is coming out and telling his people they can't participate in the American Bar Association. Because, of course, they don't like the American Bar Association, which I'm a part of, because, they rate the judges and they critique Trump and they see him for the criminal president that he is. This administration, now I'm stuttering, this administration can't end soon enough. The great national nightmare. But we're watching is how quickly, remember those game shows when you and I were a kid, and they throw somebody in a booth with like tens of thousands of dollars floating in the sky, and you had like 20 seconds to grab as much as you can. This is the Trump administration. How much damage Trump wants to do in the shortest amount of time. That's all we're watching. He's trying to reshape the relationship between the American people and its government, basically cutting off any accountability or responsibility and cutting off money ties and support and the social safety net. He's trying to destroy as much as he possibly can to shrink the federal government, the parts he hates, as small as it can to drown it in a bathtub. But he knows he's out of time. If we're right and he's wrong, he's out of time in less than 2 years. If we're wrong, he's certainly out of time in 4.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. First of all, I can assure you that it's going to become a constitutional question to the Supreme Court on what on what the Constitution is really saying about consecutive terms for the presidency.
You think he's going to try to run?
100%, especially knowing if the House and the Senate end up turning Democrat. And again, one of the things that I do not want my listeners, and thank God we have a huge listening audience, one of the things I do not want them to stop doing is staying vigilant, staying active, staying part of the community. Why? Because the second that we do, we've already seen what happens in the past. Trump wins, we lose. How many times did everybody turn around and say with the first impeachment, oh God, that's it, he's gone, right? The facts are the facts, he's gone. Well, that didn't pan out well for America, did it? Well, how about the second impeachment? Not really. How about the first, the second, the third, the fourth indictment? How did that work out? The only one of the four indictments that actually worked out was the one that I was the unfortunate, key witness to, that ultimately resulted in the 34 criminal convictions. But what was the accountability there when Judge Merchan comes back and says, well, based upon the Supreme Court decision, I can't even hold the president accountable because he's the president. We've watched as Trump defied the odds again and again and again. He has what's known as the devil's luck. All right. He has defied every odd. And I'm telling you, as I sit here right now, that he is going to go for another term, especially if the House and or the Senate flip in the midterm.
For our audience,
both. Yes.
Just for our audience, because you don't have to go to law school to know how to read. And so the 22nd Amendment, Section 1 says the following: no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of the president or acted as a president for more than 2 years of a term to which that person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. So if you're a vice president and you get elevated and you spend 2 full years, that's a term. I don't know how you read that any other way, even this United States Supreme Court.
Let's go back to the first part, right?
All right.
We're not talking about consecutive. He didn't go consecutive, and it opens up a legal argument with the Supreme Court.
Where does it say? Where does it say consecutive? Elected more than twice.
Right, elected more than, but they were talking about in 2 consecutive terms. That's the argument.
Where does it say that?
To make.
It doesn't say that, but that's what they're going to argue.
That's the constitutional argument, right? They were talking about two consecutive terms, not one here, one there. So he has the right to run for a second consecutive term.
But that's not what the language says, and that's not what the history says.
That's the argument that they're going to bring up. And with the Supreme Court right now in his proverbial back pocket, it is certainly an argument, and it's one. Look, my biggest fear is that what they're doing right now is that they're laying the groundwork for a post-rule of law America. That's really my biggest fear.
Where he just stays. This is Civil War, the movie?
Yes.
He just stays in?
Yes.
They have to pull him out underneath his desk?
Well, it's possible, kicking and screaming. Well, let me ask you this then, because since we're talking about court rulings, U.S. Appeals Court, and I couldn't believe it when I saw this ruling come out, just ruled that Trump can fire thousands of federal workers under the Schedule F order that he pushed from his last term. My question to you is, how devastating is this for a nonpartisan civil service system?
Oh, we don't have a nonpartisan civil service system under Donald Trump. Not when he's done. Let me just put it all together here in one package. He's immobilized, and he's not going to fill those positions at the Merit Protection Service Board or the National Labor Relations Board, created along with the Office of Special Counsel to protect workers and federal workers. He has eliminated the 2 people that's been approved by the appellate courts, and they are not going to be reinstated. Without a quorum, they can't act. That's exactly what he wanted to do. So there's no more National Labor Relations Board. Good job, unions, for supporting Donald Trump. You have nothing to protect you any longer.
Yes, mazel to you all.
Great job. We're going to stay on the sidelines and see how this plays out. Yep, good job. Merit Protection Service Board will also be immobilized because they won't have a quorum. So now he's decapitated those two bodies that protect the labor force in America, including the federal labor force. That's one. Two, he's now got the United States Supreme Court that ruled that Judge Alsop's decision about arbitrary and capricious firing of probationary workers is going to be lifted. That's the block, the injunction, or the forced rehire. Those people are back on the unemployment lines. Judge Berdard in Maryland, he made a ruling based on the reduction in force law about you can't, without notice, just dump people on the unemployment line, especially when the states aren't ready for it. So he blocked it in 9 agencies, 19 states. And the fourth, seeing the writing on the wall, that's I think what you're referring to, seeing the writing on the wall of the United States Supreme Court, the Fourth Circuit over Maryland said, yeah, that seems okay. You can fire them too. So it was overlapping orders about probationary workers. So now Donald Trump, through Doge and Elon Musk, has gotten rid of 20,000 probationary employees, which sounds bad.
This episode of Mea Culpa is brought to you by Graza, my new favorite olive oil. It's fresh, it's never blended, and it comes from a single type of olive, the Picual, straight out of Jaén, Spain, where over half of the world's olive oil is produced. So why Graza? Single origin goodness, that's why. Only one olive from one region. No mysterious blends. That means a traceable, a fresher product without mixing in any low grade or unknown oils. It's super fun. It has squeeze and spray bottles too, so there's no more messy tins or drippy spouts. Just aim, squeeze, and go. I mean, there are 3 types for any task that you have. One, they have something called frizzle. That's their newest, with a higher 490-degree Fahrenheit smoke point, which is perfect for frying, crisping, or grilling. Sizzle at 410 degrees Fahrenheit, which is an everyday cooking oil for roasting, marinating, and sauteing. Then they have something called drizzle, which is a bold, a punchy finishing oil that you sprinkle on your salads, you dip your bread in, or even you top it off on your ice cream. Look, let me be clear. My daughter is the actual chef in the house, and she uses olive oil on everything from pastas to preparing steak. I mean, not only does this cook well, it smells delicious. Plus, as a healthy eater, Graza's extra virgin oils, they are loaded with those heart and brain friendly polyphenols. So it's good for you. Look, so here's what you get. You get 10% off your first order on Graza's site. But I personally suggest grabbing the trio. That's all the 3 squeezy bottles, the sizzle, the frizzle, and the drizzle, so that you're set for every style of cooking. So head right now to graza.co and use code Cohen to get 10% off of trio, which includes, again, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle, and get to cooking your next chef quality meal. Again, head to Graza, graza.co, and use code Cohen, Cohen, to get 10% off the trio. And I love saying it, sizzle, frizzle, and drizzle. So get cooking now.
We ever use the word probationary, it sounds bad. Like they're on probation. No, it's just a title they use for everybody with less than a year of service. To Judge Alsop, that is the lifeblood of civil service. We need young people or new people to come in to replace those that are retiring and resigning. So now between the people that they're lopping off at the top with the forced retirement, take our money, what Christy Noem is offering $25,000 now for Homeland Security people to leave. So they're getting rid of people at the top, they're getting rid of people at the bottom, and now good luck getting anybody to answer the phone at Social Security you think your time trying to get a driver's license renewed at DMV was bad? Wait till you see what he's done at Social Security in order to cut federal funding, hollow out get rid of the Department of Education, gone. Donald Trump hates America's youth, gone. Get rid of the regulations that help kids get ahead and boom, get rid of that.
And by the way, to those kids that voted for Trump, that sat there running around, after the Roe versus Wade decision and the college campuses and so on, the expression, they know better than I, fuck around, find out, right?
That's it.
Congratulations to you. Good luck getting a job.
Nothing to protect you. If you have, and God forbid, in the Trump world, you have some sort of handicap or disability, because you are no longer protected by federal law, by federal education law. You don't have a Department of Education on. It's not just kids and getting DEI instruction about Harriet Tubman. Jackie Robinson no longer in posters in schoolrooms. That's not what I'm talking about. Although that I still like that. I'm talking about higher education as well. Title IX offices, people that were gender discriminated against, female athletes, gone in a blink of an eye. So when you have all of that, there is no civil service any longer. This is the Schedule F thing. This is exactly what Project 2025 wanted. I could cite you chapter and verse from the 900 pages. He is constantly giving tribute and checking the boxes for his masters in the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025. Yep. Here's a question for you. I got two questions for you. And do we need to send out an APB? Where is the First Lady of the United States? And where is the Vice President of the United States? Are they in hiding?
So the First Lady is doing her own thing. She's making a movie, a documentary about herself. You say it so
cavalierly. She's doing her own thing.
She's making a movie. It's I believe going to be a Netflix movie.
No, Amazon. Amazon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Amazon.
$40 million.
Right, 40 million bucks about the life of Melania. Right. So she's busy. Right. And as far as J.D. Vance, last I heard he was at what's the name of that couch store, the one that you see on top, Bob's, Bob's Couches or whatever the fuck, he's finding his next prom date. I have no fucking clue. Out. Yeah, I have no idea.
We have no vice president. Remember all the attacks on Kamala Harris?
You do. You do have a vice president. Yeah. You have. Elon Musk's kid.
Elon Musk.
Right. No, his kid, the one that's hanging on his head.
Little X.
Yeah, little X. He's the vice president. Just ask him, right? When he said to Trump, "You're not the president, my daddy is," right? Yeah, which I guess makes him the vice president. But
could you imagine the public outcry if Michelle Obama or Jill Biden disappeared from being White House, from being the First Lady? They do have jobs. They do have functions, even though they're not in the Constitution per se. Okay, that's that. And then and how much flack did Kamala Harris get for being, not at the border and not responsible? What did she do? What has she done? What has J.D. Vance done? Donald Trump, by the way, I think he's making good on his promise to continue to evaluate J.D. Vance as to whether he's going to be running for president in the future. I thought,
no, he's not. By the way, let me be very clear about it. He's not going to back and endorse J.D. Vance. There's not a chance in the world. J.D. Vance doesn't have what it takes in order to bring a plurality of voters. He's weird from his mascara to his couch fucking and everything in between. He's just a weird guy. He just is, and they don't have it. So chances are Trump will probably try to push Don Jr. or one of maybe even Ivanka. Maybe that's why they're keeping her out of the spotlight for now. So in that way, there's less to attack her and Jared on, including their unholy relationship with Mohammed bin Salman and other leaders, in the Middle East. I don't know, but I will tell you what I do know. As we watch these purges take place, you were spot on when you said this is part of Heritage's play from Project 2025. And Trump told us what he was going to do, that he was intending to purge the entire federal bureaucracy and replace it with a handful of loyalists. In essence, turning every single government agency into a political arm of the White House. This is what he's planning. This is what this guy told you he was going to do. So to those of you that raised the MAGA flag, that raised the Trump 2024, that raised the Trump 2028 flag, right? You fucked around. And now you're going to find out, because the bulk of those people, the bulk of the 77 million people who voted for Trump in 2024, they are the ones who are going to get hurt the most.
Oh, yeah.
The elderly on Social Security, those that rely upon cheap goods, basically the lower and the middle class, the ones that Donald Trump somehow managed to sprinkle some fairy dust on their heads and make them believe that he and they are the same, that he has a blue collar mentality, like what you said, the union workers, the teachers, and so on. All right. Now is the time to smarten up. In fact, Jim Acosta and I, right after this show airs, we're doing a town hall in New York City where we're going to, and it's going to be live streamed, so everybody will be able to watch it, talking about exactly what's going on. I think we're going to call it the No Fear Tour, because that's really what you have to have, like you, Popok, like the MeidasTouch Network, like the Mycelis brothers. When you go out there and you put your neck into the guillotine, and Trump is the one who's holding that rope from it slicing your head off, understand, he doesn't have a lot of strength in his hands. That guillotine is dropping. So when I say no fear tour, you really have to have no fear, because you are taking on, as this guy Chris Krebs and Miles Taylor, they're going to be taking on the entire weight and force of the entire United States government.
Yeah. Well, that's what we need right now. I mean, there was an interesting quote. I don't think I can grab it quick enough. I don't know if you caught the Trevor McFadden decision to put AP, Associated Press, back in the game. And he's a Trump appointed judge, but they ruled, like you mentioned, Acosta, they ruled that Trump has brazenly violated the First Amendment rights of the Associated Press, where over half the world's population gets their news from, by denying them access to Donald Trump and things around the White House, to punish them because they wouldn't call it the Gulf of America. That's the case. And Trevor McFadden spent about 30 pages, very interesting way that he structured it. About half of it, or a third of it, was a historical overview of the role of the press and the First Amendment from the founding days. And he used a quote, which I'm going to paraphrase, which I think he put in there on purpose. I think it was a sly troll of Donald Trump, because he could have picked a lot of different quotes from the framers and the Federalist Papers. But the one he picked was the one about how the role of the press to bring tyrants, oligarchs, blowhards, bloodsuckers, and others to justice. And it was necessary in a free society. I thought it was a very interesting choice of words, because when you look at it, who does that describe? You know, it's Trump.
It describes Joe Biden. It describes crooked Joe Biden, who spent so much time here behind the Resolute desk. There are 7 desks that you could choose from, but I ended up choosing this one because I like the way that it looks. And many others have done it too, but I chose it. It's Sleepy Joe. He's at fault.
Well, that's it. Well, we know that from the Signal Gate, that the when in doubt, blame Joe Biden. That's in the text messages, the exchanges. But my point is, it has always been fearless criticism of a presidency is waters the tree of liberty, and without it, if you don't do what you do, I don't do what I do. MeidasTouch doesn't do. Legal AF, the YouTube channel, and all that. We don't do it without fear of reprisal. And we're tap dancing on fear of reprisal. It's just, as the old line, we're throwing rocks at the jail.
Yeah.
Which okay, and we know it. And I have a little bit of
twice.
Yeah, and I
use that twice.
I use that phrase on purpose for you, and it shows you what And now that you're in this role, this important role of holding those in power accountable. As I always say on Legal AF, we got to talk truth to each other first, right?
Right.
And then we got to talk truth to power. We got to be honest with ourselves and be critical even of ourselves, right? That's why we're beating up Democrats too about their approach to Donald Trump.
I sure do.
Right. You have to, because if we don't do that, then we are certainly going to lose again. So what you do, Jim Acosta does, Meidas Brothers do, the network that you and I are both on, Legal AF, this is life's calling. This is what you do for a living, and it is God's work. I left my law firm and started a new law firm, but I left that to do full-time this 2-3 months before the election because I worried about what 2025 and for my baby daughter, what life was going to be like.
Yeah, look, I'm just concerned what's going to be left to protect our republic. That's the end. People like you, again, MeidasTouch Network, Jim, and many, many other people. But when you say many people, not compared to the 77 million that voted for Trump. Mike Popok, thank you so much for joining me on Mea Culpa. You make us all smarter. I truly, truly appreciate you. To my listeners, make sure that you go and you check out Legal AF. It's brilliant, by the way. And
come on with me, will you? You haven't been on it a while.
All you have to do is invite.
All right, I'll go through Sydney.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, right. Mike. I'll see you soon.
You're welcome, Michael. Bye.
Bye, pal.